There's new condo reform laws coming to the state of Florida. So a lot of condo owners in Miami and Miami Beach, especially when it comes to owning an older building, are thinking about selling their condo before these laws come into effect. My name is Anthony Johnson, and I'm a real estate agent in Miami, and I'm also the creator of Audio.com. And I've recently had a couple of clients of mine reach out, and they're thinking about selling their condo because they are a little bit worried about the new reform that is coming with the new condo reform laws. I don't really want to get too much into them because there are still some things that's up in the air. But overall, if you own a condo in Miami, it is kind of nerve-wracking. After the tragic Surfside collapse, which I still can't believe happened, it should have never happened. And it's one of those things that happen and we continue to go on with our lives. And it's unfortunate that a tragedy like that had to happen for this to be something that is important for the lawmakers to make some changes. I had actually did a blog around that time, and I did a little bit of research to find out more about the 40-year recertification. I found out about that as a newer agent when I did my first deal, and that came up. So long story short, some time ago, a CIA building collapsed and killed a few people. And since then, the 40-year recertification came into play. So the use case for the 40-year recertification was to just pretty much make sure that buildings don't collapse. It involves inspections to make sure that everything is safe and sound. So fast forward to today, the 40-year recertification is pretty much getting a facelift, in my opinion. And they're going to be a milestone inspection. It's going to be more frequent inspections after that. And they're also going to require that condos have a specific amount of reserves. This is something that I never understood as a real estate agent here, that some condos do not have reserves. One of the big things when it comes to buying a condo in Miami is that the down payments vary because there's other things that come into play, such as if there are too many tenants versus owners. But one of the main things that we used to run into hurdles when it comes to financing is the having to have a limited versus a full review, where you put a lower down payment if the condo building can pass a full review. With a lot of condos in Miami not being able to pass that full review, you will be able to do a limited review, which will allow lenders to lend you money on the condo, but you'll have to put more money down. So I'm already getting a little sidetracked here. Pretty much, I just didn't understand why this was a thing when it came to reserves. I feel like people pay an association fee. I understand that there's checks and balances. Some things need to get taken care of, and then there's only so much left. But I just feel like stuff should be put aside for a rainy day. I tell buyers that when you buy a property, you should always have reserves in case something happens. There's other things that's supposed to be coming into play. I've been a real estate agent for about 7 years now, and I've mainly dealt with condos. And one of the biggest pain points that I had when I used to work with buyers is getting the documents to the buyers has always been somewhat of a headache. When a buyer goes under contract, they're supposed to get the condo documents to review. Now, that in itself to me is a problem, that a condo buyer has to go under contract to get the documents for the condo. That makes zero sense to me because as someone that is focusing on the seller side now, it's a pain when the buyer is buying the condo and they have to go under contract. So my client as the seller thinks they're getting ready to sell their property. We're under contract. It's a little bit of excitement here. And then the buyer finds out that, it's going to need a new roof or something is coming. There is no special assessments or anything, but you can tell by looking at the documents that something is coming or they don't have enough reserves, so on and so forth. And then the buyer wants to back out. And when a contract starts during the inspection period, a buyer can back out for any reason. And also, at least with the as-is sales and purchase contract, a buyer can back out for any reason after they receive those documents within 3 days. We just went under contract for no reason. For the buyer, I feel like it's unfair that they have to go under contract, put money into escrow to get information about a condo. Now, I raised this in one of the classes that I went to, and the response was that they don't want to give this information to just anybody. And they want to make sure that the buyer really wants to buy a condo before they get this document out. Something along those lines, and I just don't get it. I don't buy it. I feel like that this information should be accessible to everyone. So if you want to buy a condo, you should be able to easily find out the health of that condo building. I do what I can by adding information on my website and to my listings on my website regarding any listing that I take, to just give more transparency to buyers so they can make an educated decision. But even me as a realtor, it's hard to get information from the condo because they don't just give it to the realtor. The seller has to get the information, and sometimes the seller has to jump through hoops for this. So there's something that was supposed to be in the works. I'm not sure where it is now. The condo associations and property managers had until sometime this year, I believe it was February, I couldn't be wrong, to submit all their information so that they can create a portal for buyers, for anyone to be able to access this information. So I'm hoping that actually goes through. I'm very excited for that. It'll make my job a little bit easier as I'm putting that information to my website. So that's one of the other things that's supposed to be into play. Should you sell your condo to avoid this new condo reform? So I recently had a couple of clients of mine reach out and ask if they should sell their condo before the new condo reform laws go into effect. And my initial response was to review the finances before you do anything, because I believe before you jump the gun, see how your building is doing. See if there's been any recent repairs. If you're not familiar with what's going on, or if you don't live in the building, make sure you check and see if there's been any recent repairs. If there were special assessments in the past, you would have known. But just review everything, make sure everything was done. See when the last 40-year recertification has happened, if there was one. Check and see what the health of your condo building is like before you make any decisions. That should be the first thing that you should do. Now, in this case, my clients have a tenant in place that is paying rent that's not quite what the market is right now. It's significantly lower than what you can get right now as a landlord if you're renting on Miami Beach. And I just think, again, this is just my opinion, that they have a reliable tenant that has been in the unit for years. If they were to put the property on the market, that it might not do well. Now, condos are still selling. The market isn't like it was 2 years ago, obviously. The interest rates have slowed down the market, but prices are still increasing and condos are still selling. It may take a little bit longer than it did before, but they're still selling. So I think if you're on the fence, why not try? If you want to just test the market, see what you can get. In most cases, when I hear people say they want to test the market, they don't sound like serious sellers, but maybe you want to test and see what you can get, because buyers are aware of these new reforms also. So if you want to see what you can get with that being out, then by all means, go ahead and do that. But in my opinion, like for the case of my client, I think that they should hold on to their property and see what happens if their condo building is doing well. Right now, with that lower rent, I don't think that it'd be enticing enough for an investor, because it's most likely going to be an investor that's going to buy with those lower rents, knowing that there's a possibility for the fees to go up. And the possibility for these fees when it comes to these condos is not only because they may need repairs or renovations done so that a special assessment is issued, but it's also the reserves that's going to be required. So if the condo building doesn't have enough reserves, they're going to have to raise the association fee to be able to make sure that they have enough reserves. There's a very good chance that, your building may, especially if you're in an older building, that you may have to pay a little bit extra when it comes to fees, whether it's for a special assessment or for the reserves to be filled up. So when it comes to the investor buying, most likely the investor is going to be savvy. They're going to weigh those things out. And if your property is being rented from a tenant that's been in the unit for years, which is a great thing, but they're renting it for $1,200, $1,300 and rents are at $2,000. If the rent was $2,000, the investor may overlook the potential of these higher fees. Now, this is all speculation. I don't have a genie ball or anything like that. The condo may sell quickly. It may sell for what you're asking, but that's just my perspective on it. Now, that's just the advice that I would give to my client. And as a whole, should you sell to avoid the condo reform? First thing I'm gonna say again is to make sure that your building is doing well, or if it's not, make sure you get all that information, find out the facts, look at your own personal situation. Are you renting out the property? Do you live in the property? Is it just a vacation home? What is it? Make sure you understand what your finances are looking like. If you live in the unit and you're worried about the fees going up, you don't have the means to pay higher fees, or you don't want to deal with repairs and renovation, whatever the case may be, then you may want to sell it. But if you're okay with the possibility of paying more or having to deal with renovations and repairs, then keep it. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that you should just sell because you're worried about something that is not here yet. Be prepared for it. Put some money aside maybe. If you're a landlord, look at your leases. Right now, rents are much higher than they were a few years ago before the pandemic. If you have a tenant that's been in there for a long time, you may have to renegotiate that rent when it's time to renew. Now, when it comes to that, just a tip is if you have a good client in place that's been around for a long time, do not just raise the rent by $1,000. And you want to make sure that you communicate with the tenant, beforehand. Give them a heads up because you don't want to lose a good tenant so you can get more money. All right. There has to be some type of balance. If you're going to raise the rent, make sure that you're open to negotiating with your tenant, and hopefully they'll pay the extra, or hopefully you'll be able to meet at some number where both parties are happy. It's going to pay off if you can keep your tenant that's been paying rent, that has given you no issues, to keep them in place versus having to get it prepared for the market, relist it, sit on the market for maybe it could take a couple of weeks to 2 months to rent your property. You're going to lose money there. And if you end up listing and they have to make repairs to the building and you have your property listed for rent, that can affect if you can get it rented for the amount of money that you want, and it can take even longer for you to get that vacancy filled. So you want to make sure you try to keep that tenant in place as much as you can, but at the same time, get a little bit closer to what market rents are. And that goes also for if you decide to sell. So again, going back to if you should sell, if you want to try to avoid that as much, because the thing is, we don't know the future. You don't know what's going to happen. So I wouldn't just make that call to sell because you just don't know. But there's a very real possibility that you can avoid any issues by selling now, because you can have a situation where the fees go up crazy. And let's just say you have a renter in there. The renter don't want to deal with the repairs they heard and they want to leave. Now you got a vacant unit and the building is being repaired on, so it's hard to sell and rent it. And there's a huge special assessment on it, and now you're stuck. And I also want to get this out before I forget that there is some type of relief where you can get a no interest loan that can go towards special assessments. If your building is levied a hefty special assessment, you can get a loan that'll help you take care of that. But it still is a loan. So that is still, it'll be interest free, but it's still a loan. I also want to say this before we wrap up this video, is that just because your building is new does not mean that you don't have to worry about this. Now, this reform is going to be for any building that is above 2 stories. So 3 stories or higher, there's going to be some reform. And it doesn't just apply to older buildings. Obviously, if there's a 30, 40, 50 year recertification, a building that was built in 2020, you don't have to worry about the inspection for some time now. But the thing that you will have to think about is reserves. Buildings are going to have a specific amount of reserves. You don't necessarily know what you're getting when you're buying a new condo, and that's a whole separate video. For instance, this property that I'm in now is a rental. This building is a rental building. They were getting ready to convert this into a condo, but they changed their minds. Now, this building has a bad pipe sound issue. We've been living in this apartment for about 3 years now, since the building was built. We're the first people that lived in this unit. And I don't know if you guys just heard that, but it was a little bit of a pipe sound that just happened. We've been dealing with pipe sound issues since we lived here, and the building is great. We got in when the pandemic hit, so we got a really good rate at the time. But since, they still raised the rent, even though we were dealing with this pipe sound, that's a whole different thing. But to get to the point, if they would have converted this into a condo building, the new condo owners would have had this issue, and they would have had to get this fixed. So who would be paying for it if there's no reserves? The condo owners. There would have been a special assessment. Special assessments happen to every building. Don't know if you guys heard that, but there it goes, right on cue. But special assessments can happen anywhere for anything. You might get, a building may get delivered and it may be perfect, it may be flawless, but there's been a few instances where the building got delivered and there's an issue, and then it's a lawsuit, and then repairs have to happen, or a pool needs to get fixed, and the condo owners have to pay that special assessment because there's no reserves. But again, it's all case by case. It's all about your situation. And I know that some condo owners are frustrated with this, but to be honest, this has to happen. In my opinion, long term, this is going to be a good thing. I wish that this happened years ago because this would have been a norm. Condo buildings should have sufficient reserves so that if a problem happens or something needs to get renovated, it can be fixed without special assessments. Condos have to be brought up to standard with special assessments if it has to get repairs and renovation. And at the end of the day, it's going to increase the value in the long term. So especially if you are in an older building and it needs work, that'll help you be able to sell or rent at a higher price in the long term. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, this video. Feel free to subscribe, comment, and please make sure that you like and comment and subscribe, all that good stuff, because doing these videos, I procrastinate. It takes a lot of time to do these videos. I'm a real estate agent. I'm creating my own platform, and I'm also trying to do videos. It'll give me some motivation to do more videos and podcasts if I'm getting some support, or if the listeners can at least let me know how they like it, if ask some questions, give me some more ideas, so on and so forth. If you guys interact with me, that'll be super helpful. So thank you for watching and listening. I'll talk to you in the next one.